Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of Transform Your Relationships. I'm Laura Rubenstein here with the wonderful and awesome Dr. Roberta Shaler. Hi, Roberta.
Hi, Laura. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
We are having a very interesting topic today. Last time we started talking about alignment, and we're going to continue that, like aligning who you are at work and at home. But now, what about what you want with what you do? Isn't that an interesting concept? Like, I think there's a lot of wanting going on in the world.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of wanting, and even more, Laura. I think what we have to come to grips with and have a good, hard, real look at is that there's a lot of wishing that doesn't even make it to the wanting stage. And the difference that I see there is you can say, I wish I had a sailboat, and I wish that that would manifest. And that's just something, a topic of conversation. You can say that no matter what. But if you say, I want a sailboat, then you have to have concrete steps to get that sailboat. Otherwise, it's just a wish. If you're not
Mm.
going down to the dock and looking at sailboats and talking to sailors and going out on people's boats and putting money in your sailboat account and buying yachting magazines, if you're not doing all of that, you just wish you had a sailboat. You don't
Interesting.
want one.
There's no action behind it, no goal set, no um,
Nothing. It's
nothing.
just good talk,
So
you know,
why would someone stay in the wishing phase and not go to the wanting action phase?
because they're afraid. If you
Ah,
just wish you had one, like that's lovely. You could talk about that forever, and everybody says, "Oh yeah, good for you. You wish you had a sailboat." But the wanting and the action phase requires you saying no to some other things in order to say yes to that thing. And so, and maybe you have to focus. Maybe you have to do things you don't want to do. Maybe you have to stick with your passion beyond the moment when it gets tough.
mm,
Those things have to happen. And, those are big issues that we're going to talk about today, because if you don't stick with it, then it really isn't a want. You were just
mm.
hoping something would show up in your driveway that looked like a sailboat.
It's a safe place to be to stay in wishing.
It's very safe. And again, it makes great conversation, and other people can say, well, she's wishing she gets a sailboat. Isn't that great? And yet, that's not necessarily anything to do with the actions that are being taken.
Yeah. And just for those of you who are joining early on, we want to let you know that you can get, if you want help with going from wishing to wanting to having, we have a help for you at forrelationshiphelp.com is Dr. Roberta Shaler's awesome website with tons of resources that can help you move to the next step. Also, I've got a great blog at transformtoday.com, and we welcome you to visit us and hang out with us beyond the blab. But we have these really stimulating conversations about going, like today, getting in alignment with what you want, really taking action and movement towards. I find that sometimes I actually have to stay. Maybe it's not in wishing, and I'm a pretty big action person, but I have to sometimes think about it a lot to say, to really understand why do I want this? You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
uh,
The compelling reason why you want it is key.
yeah, because sometimes it's like avoid, I may want something to avoid something else, which is not really what I want, right? Like, and then I think we have a greed epidemic.
Yes. Yeah.
And so many things. I have clients that come to me, look at this webinar, shouldn't I take it? I feel so bad about myself that I'm not doing these things, that I'm not even going to the webinar. Like I feel like I should be this success already because this person's leading this class and teaching all these other people, and I'm not going to be this success, and because I don't know their secret sauce. And boy, when you read all these things you could have, and you get anxious about not having it, but you haven't even looked underneath, is that really what you want?
Well, yes, you're speaking to so many things that we can talk about here, but first of all, we have that FOMO, that fear of missing out. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to stay focused on our goals because there's another bright shiny object just over there that sounds much easier and more appealing. And if I just give that person $997, my problems will be completely solved. And you leave yourself out of the equation because you're still that person, and you have to know who you are, which is what we talked about before, walking in alignment with your values, to know if what it is you seem to want is because other people have told you you should want it, or if it actually is in alignment with your gifts and your interests and the way you want to use your time to make your contribution to the world. And there are a lot of shoulds. People are always telling us, obviously we all are supposed to want to be a millionaire. I mean, there's something wrong with you if you don't want to be a millionaire. And then please give me $1 million to show you how to do that. It's kind of a crazy business, but I think it's so important for us to know that we have one life, and that life is for us to be as conscious and thoughtful about as possible. So to your point, sometimes we want something or think we want something, but we have to look underneath that to see what is the compelling why that I want it.
So I want to take away like the curtain of greed here. Like, oh, you can make $1 million. What if we just took that off the table?
Please.
Now what do you want? What do you want? What does your soul, what will bring meaning to your life and to your soul? What will your life be about? Like when there's a lovely exercise that a lot of coaches do, and sometimes I'll ask clients this question. We come to the end of your life. You get to write your epitaph. What do you want written on your tombstone, or what do you want somebody to say about looking back on your life? What was that contribution? And maybe it's not the whole life. Maybe it's this phase of your life. What do you want this rich, juicy time to be about that would make it worthwhile living right now? And let's put the want behind that. Focus on that. Yes, let's give each other props for sure. So
yeah, I think that's really important. I did that exercise 30 years ago. And what I wanted on my epitaph was, and this may work for some people because it's not really about the contribution, but it's about the result of the contribution. And I want on my epitaph, where I'd have one, which I'm not, that would be, she'll be missed. Because if I'm not missed from somebody's life, what was I here for? If my contribution wouldn't be missed, what have I done with my time? So it's important when we do that exercise to find out well, let me tell you a story. I think I mentioned it before to you about the reporter who was interviewing Albert Schweitzer at the end of his life. Did I tell you about that?
I don't recall.
Oh, okay. Well, the reporter was talking to Albert Schweitzer, who was a missionary, brilliant man, and a lot written about him. You can look him up. And he said, "Is there anything about dying that scares you?" And Albert Schweitzer said, "Yes, there's one thing." He said, "I'm not afraid if St. Peter asks me, 'Why weren't you Albert Einstein?' He said, but I'm very afraid that he might ask me, 'Why wasn't I Albert Schweitzer?'"
Yes.
Right? So here we have the opportunity to live fully expressed, aware, and conscious. And if we go on autopilot and live by the magazines who tell us what we should want in order to be their definition of successful, we just miss the opportunity of our lifetime. We don't want to be doing that.
So throw all those magazines away, all the self-help books away, all the gurus who want to charge you a lot of money away. Clear the deck.
Yes.
What do you want?
Yes. And if you need help with that, call me. Because this is the most basic thing. Or call Laura, call somebody, and work with them to help you. What I'll do for you, what Laura will do for you, what any good person will do for you, is ask you insightful questions that you wouldn't ask yourself naturally. And then you can move in that direction, because you have to know who you are and what you're here to do, what really floats your boat and flips your skirt, and what do you want to get up for in the morning?
And
You
I
know?
notice when I have these conversations with clients, I get inspired. Like when I
Yeah.
get that they're aligned, I get inspired. Or even if they're not yet knowing what they want, it's like opening the door and saying, there's a door over here. You're pointing to it. Let me turn your head. You're pointing to it. You've been looking at other things, but it's right here. And
Yes.
then there's this big light bulb moment, and then you can go set your goals and get into action. And it's just natural. And that fear, if it's there, acknowledge it, walk with it, make it
Yes.
your friend, let it guide you to what you really want. Fear, we so often want to squash and get rid of. But fear is an opportunity. Unless you're in danger, then run for your life. Okay. And physical danger, I have a saying, um, don't let fear run your life. Unless you're in physical danger, then run your life. Run for your life.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you have that fear, it can be channeled, that energy. In fact, a therapist once told me, do you know what the difference between fear and excitement is? It's a breath. It's the same energy, but one's like holding breath and one's like breathing.
Yeah, exactly. And fear tells you you're onto something, right? Like, and fear invites you to examine your commitment to something. I mean, if you don't have commitment, any excuse will do. Oh, that scares me. Or I've got to read 3 books before that, or take 6 courses, or clean my car out, or
Mm.
whatever. That will be a good indication to you that maybe you're a little afraid to get started. Maybe you're afraid you won't succeed. But, heck, do it anyway if it's your passion. If you don't succeed, you'll have learned something. If you do succeed, you'll have contributed something. Where's the problem?
Mm. Yes, make fear your friend and guide. And, I think fear comes up when we respond to it, and that we're alluding to something called self-sabotage here. That this is the opportunity for the breakthrough to transform that. And if you've done that foundational work like we talked about last time, what do you value and what do you want now? Clearing the table. What do you want? If all things are possible for you, then you just keep coming back to what do you want? This is the truth. If you want it, you can have it. Take a deep breath, transform that energy, walk with it.
Let me just put something in front of that, Laura, because I think it's important. The idea, one of the ways that we can also, rather than just make up our mind what we're going for,
Mhm.
is to honor the fact that maybe we're sitting in meditation and an idea comes. Or maybe we're led to hear something like a blab that we didn't even know why we went to listen to it. And maybe these things kindle in us a fascination or an understanding or a new thought like, wow, that's really important to me. So don't think that you have to be sitting down and going, what am I about? And make it really, really hard work.
Hmm.
But when an inspiration comes or a guidance comes or something, follow it. Find out, is that what I'm about? I am the queen of bright, shiny object syndrome if left to my own devices. I will go madly off in all directions because so much interests me. But I had to learn over time to whittle and wean that down to be, what is my major contribution? And then once I got there, what is my major contribution within that? And it took time. And it took listening to my guidance and listening to my intuition and finding myself amazed that I just heard something or learned something or met someone that I had not in any way orchestrated.
You bring up a really good topic that I want to highlight: time. The other problem I see with clients coming to me, they always wish it was already done, or they expect it's going to take no time to get what they want. to get a result. Like even on social media. It's like, I'm just going to put my business out there on social media and all this business is going to come. I'm going to sell all these books. A lot of authors come to me. And guess what? It takes time. Things take time. Now, things can happen quickly, but I think there's some unrealistic expectations that you have to allow the right time to unfold. You have to plan for certain things that you want to get done, which will help with that bright, shiny object syndrome. Even if there's like all these things aligned with you, if you know what you want and you know your focus and a general timeline and it's realistic, they say set SMART goals. One of them is setting realistic timelines. So check in, not expectations when you want it, but what's realistic. Then you can manage your shiny bright object syndrome and you can manage that expectation, knowing that things take time, especially when you trust. There's this element of trusting that you're on your right path and things unfold in the right time. Have you had that experience?
Absolutely. And let's be, like you said, realistic. Let's use a really prime example. You get this tiny seed and it gets planted. It takes 9 months to have a baby. What are you hoping for?
Or plants in the ground even. It's like, don't I have broccoli yet? It's like February.
Yeah, it's like the people who go out and pull up the plants to see if they have any roots yet, Like, come on. And I know that sometimes we're desperate, and I know sometimes we're just so anxious to make something happen. But if you're settled into knowing your goal and knowing why you have that goal and knowing that you're going to have a little fear because it's probably a big goal and that you're going to have to take the time, then you have that opportunity to relax. And again, breathe. Okay, are you taking 3 steps every day towards your goal, no matter how small? Once you know what the goal is, you break it down into objectives and then into tasks. And are you taking 3 steps every day towards it? And because if you don't water it, it ain't going to grow.
Yes. And I have a tip about the bright, shiny objects. So, sometimes we might use them as a distraction to go off and like sabotage ourselves. And we justify it. This is so in alignment with me, right? So what I often encourage people to do is ask a question. Is this the highest and best use of my time right now? Given my goals, put that in the front. Given my goals, is this the highest and best use of my time right now?
Great question.
And if it's a yes, then you need to reschedule the things you were going to do. Those 3 things you were just saying, that make sure you do every 3 things, for an immediate time in the near future, and you can go off and do the other thing. If it's not in your highest and best use, given your goals of the time, then guess what? You get to stick with your 3 things to do today.
And and that's such good advice, Laura.
What?
That's such good advice, because if these things are important to you and you've put them on your calendar, you've made a date with yourself to actually do them. And sure, sometimes something comes up. Sometimes there's something amazing, an opportunity, but you have to do exactly what you said. Then you have to say, okay, if this is an amazing opportunity and I'm going to use the time in a different way, then I need to move my time to work on what I said I was going to do to the next available space.
Right. And I want to highlight that in terms of using your calendar. Like what you were saying, Roberta, is like brilliant. The calendar is your best friend. We are so used to just calendaring in appointments with other people. But calendar in the appointments to get your to-do list in there.
That's right. It keeps it in front of your face all the time.
And guess what? Do my little tip. If you don't do that little appointment with yourself for, whatever that task was, reschedule it in the immediate near future.
Mm-hmm. And, we don't always go places in a straight line. You know, a sailboat gets where it's going by tacking. Know that you are perhaps going to take a path that is not exactly straight, but you never lose sight of the direction and the destination. That's important.
Props for you.
Never lose sight of the destination and the direction, because that will keep you on task. You know, if you're generally herding the cats west, you're going to get west eventually. But if you go off in all directions, as I said, my natural tendency is to do, it doesn't work so well. You know, here's an example from my life. Yes, I've written lots of books, and yes, I've spoken in lots of wonderful places, and I love doing all of that. However, the books don't get written if I don't put my fanny on the fabric. You know, there's no magic to doing that. The speaking opportunities, they have to be prepared for. They have to be invited. You know, these things have to happen. It's not like, and occasionally it happens that my telephone rings or I get an email to say, come and speak or do this. But if I want to offer my gifts to the world, I have to tell someone about my gifts and make them valuable to them so that they would have that idea. And the same thing is true for any goal that you have. You have to keep your fanny on the fabric, and you have to keep going in the direction, and you have to tell lots of people this is my goal, because if you don't tell them, they won't know they could help you.
Getting help, very key. Help is key. Speaking of help, we have books. You mentioned books. Tell us about your books that people can learn about at forrelationshiphelp.com.
Well, I have books, 16 of them. So you can learn about from Kaizen for Couples, Smart Steps to Save, Sustain, and Strengthen Your Relationship. You can get the Passive Aggressive edition of my new book. I'm just finishing the big book, but the Passive Aggressive edition is out there. It's called The Hijackal Trap: Loving Someone Who Shoves You Away Yet Demands That You Stay. My field within my field is working with the partners and co-workers of chronically difficult people. Those are the people I call hijackals. And if you want to know what that means, it means hijackals are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes while scavenging for power, status, and control. You might know one of those or be related to one of those. So there's lots of books there for you, and my blog too at For Relationship Help. And then I want to say too, you know, .com. Laura, you know, what you write about in Social Media Myths Busted, and the kind of help that you've given me to make myself more visible is invaluable. So if you have a goal and you need to tell people about it, then, you know, use the tips that Laura suggests, because, you know, incredible result by doing one thing that she said that had never occurred to me. Yay. So get help. Tell people that around you, but tell people on social media too.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, you know, my book is actually kind of about what I was talking about, those things that get in the way of getting your goal of what you want. So many people put resistance up there to social media. It's like, I want to be a success, but I hate social media. You know, I don't want my private life, you know, exposed. I don't want, you know, it's just a waste of time. And there's all these excuses. Guess what? Every chapter is a different excuse and how to bust it because of the phenomenal tool and the phenomenal opportunity you have to access billions of people you otherwise wouldn't have access to before. You make new friendships, you make new business alliances, you get resources, you get support. And my whole thing about writing this book, the bottom line is if we have more people using social media for social good, it becomes a better platform. The world becomes a better place. We drown out the negative. Okay, and we need that positive energy, and it's a fabulous tool for that. My theme is inspiring. So anything I put on social media, I think, is this inspiring? is, can this move people forward? Does this lift me up? Then I put it on. If it doesn't answer those questions, doesn't provide some good for somebody, it ain't going up.
Right. And so that's very clear, so that you see that Laura's goals, what Laura's gift to the world is aligned with what she does every day, because she's thought it through. So when you are aligning what you want with what you do, that might be what you do every day. It might be what you do to earn money. It might be what you do in your relationship. You know, from my point of view, as a relationship expert, I hear lots of people talk the talk about, oh, love. And, you know, and this week and Valentine's week, oh, we're all trying to recapture, reconnect, reignite, do the right thing, buy the right gift. Woo! Some magic is going to cause us to really rekindle all that we ever had before. And if that's not your goal every day, that's not going to happen. If you think that you're going to celebrate on Valentine's Day and somehow that's going to allow you to coast for the next 2 months, it's not going to work. Because if your goal is aligned with, I want a wonderful, satisfying, reciprocal, mutual, respectful, and honest relationship, that's 365. That's not Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's why we're here, to remind you.
That's right. So, you know, whatever it is you want, make sure that you're going in that direction and that you keep sight of the destination, and that the actions that you're taking are actually on that path. They're not a little bit here and a little bit there and all over the place, because, you know, that's just creating a rut for yourself. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, you know, in all directions. All you'll end up with is home base. You won't end up ever getting around the bases. So it's very important to think this through. And it's not like sitting here listening to the blab and going, yeah, that's right, and then going off and doing whatever you were going to do anyway. It's like blocking off some time and saying, why do I do what I do? Where am I endeavoring to go? What's my plan for getting there? And how am I doing with that?
Amen, sister. I mean, it's really a gift when you know what you want, and you know that you want it from a place of wholeness, not of a lack, not of missing, of what would just take this life to the next level and make it meaningful for you. And speaking of that, if, you know, and Valentine's, our next blab is going to be about how to attract love, how to get more love in your life. And we have a very unique twist on that. So I invite everyone to tune in next time, which will be in another 2 weeks on a Tuesday at the same time. And, you know, in the meantime, focus on what is in your heart. What is that you truly want, that from a generous place, from a peaceful place, if you can get there. You need to take all the concerns off the table. Know that life is working with you and all is well. And that's the thought I want to leave people with today. How about you, Roberta?
Well, I would say that echo what you said, but I would add to it this, that you have this one opportunity to be you, not a carbon copy of someone else, not doing it because someone else thinks you should, or because someone expects you to do it. Accord yourself the time to figure out, what's your life about? What direction do you want to go? What is unique about that? And map out your plan. And do it. Get some support if you need it. Get some encouragement. But know that you are unique, and that what's right for you may not be right for somebody else. But at least know what's right for you and go with it and for it with your heart.
I'm putting our URLs here up in the chat. So if anybody wants more from us, we had such a rich conversation. I'm at Transform Today, and of course you can learn more about my book, Social Media Myths Busted, there. And Dr. Roberta Shaler is at forrelationshiphelp.com, and you can get her books, Kaizen for Couples and The Hijackal Trap, the Passive Aggressive Edition. You know, I just think that we have covered an incredible new perspective for people to get beyond shiny objects, just as a little recap here, by focusing in on what is truly in your heart, taking away all the extraneous messages that culture is saying. I feel personally, just to recap, we have an epidemic of greed, that greed is good, but it's totally like blinding us to what makes life rich, juicy, powerful for us. So come back for another blab. Let us know what you want in life. And if you have questions, of course, we always love questions. We can stay on for another couple minutes if there are. You just use the /Q in the chat box. I think it's right over there. And you're welcome to ask us questions. If we can't cover them today, if it's not on topic for today, maybe we'll cover them in a future blab. We are going to be here twice a month for you. And happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Enjoy your celebrations. Love yourself lots.
Yes, and remember, love anything that you want to give to someone else, you must have it for yourself. Whether that's going out and buying a gift to give, or finding the honesty, safety, trust, respect, reliability within yourself so that you have that gift to give. And the greatest gift that you can give to anyone on Valentine's Day is an aligned, happy, conscious you.
Yay, and thanks for being aligned with us today, Abdul and Candy J. Thanks for your tweet, and we will see you next time.
Yes, happy Valentine's.
Happy Valentine's. Bye.